In this episode, we interview Matt from Trades by Matt. Now, Matt is interesting because he is one of the few traders that live streams his trading sessions every day on YouTube. In this episode, he does a great job of explaining to you his particular process for how he is able to trade futures, scalps, and he even shares some great insights on what you can do to handle your psychology when you may be losing more than you expect to. There are a lot of great nuggets of wisdom in this podcast episode, and I'm excited to share it with you. Let's jump right in. What's up, Matt? Good to see you again, brother.
Yeah, good to see you.
You ready to jump into 20 questions?
Let's do it.
I'm excited for this. All right, let's do it. So my first question is based on your background. When did you start trading?
So got into trading in high school when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do for college. I learned about finance from my dad, and I thought finance equals stocks back in the day. And so started poking around there and then got super aggressive into trading right after school. So about 4 years ago.
Gotcha. So just 4 years ago, which you came out of, so it was high school or university?
Out of college, yeah.
Got it. Okay. And so during that time when you were learning how to trade, what would you say frustrated you the most about learning the process of trading in the beginning?
So I think the thing that frustrated me the most was one, trying to find my own strategy. So like you go anywhere when you're trying to learn how to trade and you have a million different things getting thrown at you. And so the most frustrating thing was just like seeing these things work for certain people and it not working for me. And then like sifting through the next big idea and then not working for me and then over and over and over again until you finally figure out what starts to like vibe and work for you, you know?
Gotcha. So with that then, what would you say was your process for finally getting consistent as a trader?
A lot of screen time. Once I finally realized like what I wanted to be trading and how I wanted to be doing it, then it was just about like a ton of screen time and really focusing on like one product for me, mastering the price action that I was going to be around every day. And that like really took me up a notch on one, not having to like spend energy and brain power thinking about all the different ways to trade and all the different things to trade, but really just like knowing I'm coming back to the same thing every morning, doing the same strategy. And so once those things were out, then it was just about screen time on seeing different types of volatility and then like learning how to play the price action.
Yeah. And so many successful traders who I interview on this podcast and who I talk to offline say the same thing. Their process for getting consistent was not focusing on the newest, shiniest object, but really honing in on one strategy, usually one instrument, and just staying with that until they can get consistent with that. And then that helped them in so many other ways, but really focusing in. So I'm glad to hear you say that as well. So my next question for you then is, okay, you gotten consistent, you've been doing your screen time, but in the simplest way you can for our audience, how do you define your edge?
I think my edge is kind of two-part. One, I focus a lot on, so I'll go chart-wise first. I'm a technical trader, so I think my edge is in understanding kind of the internals of the market. So whether buyers or sellers are actively participating or not participating and at what levels they are. That's kind of my edge. And then from a mental standpoint, I think my super edge, which I think this is honestly kind of like where the last true alpha lies, to be frank, is like my emotional side of my trading and trying to really like be like true zen going into my trading session. I think that like literally changes everything for me.
Absolutely. Okay. So then you kind of touched on it, but let me see if there's some additional things that you would add here with this next question. So you say tapping into your true zen. What would you say are the qualities of your personality that have helped you to become a successful trader?
So I think one, so like my personality test, if you will, I'm like a 50-50 introvert extrovert. So I think that allows me to one, like be self kind of contained. And I'm also like incredibly analytical. So like, that's just the way my brain works, is numbers and charts, which is nice for trading. So that's like, that helps from a personality perspective, but then like being like slightly introverted to where like, I want to be alone, spending time studying charts and stuff, but also like, I kind of give energy. I get energy also from being like around people and in situations that are kind of high stress sometimes, which is also kind of trading in a nutshell, right? So I think both of those on the personality front are helpful for me. Not to say that other personality types don't do well, right? But analytical
Sure.
and yeah,
Sure. One of the best things is just to tap into what is it about you that works for trading, because we know there's so many different ways to trade. So if you can pick the thing that works for you and fit your personality types, and that's ultimately the best way to do it, because
yeah,
there's money to be had in whatever way you ultimately
exactly,
trade, as long as you can do it successfully, which
exactly.
is so true. So that's what I have for you in terms of background. If you don't mind, let's jump into a little bit about your trading method. Okay,
Yeah.
so my first question for you is: what is your favorite instrument or your asset track? I'm sorry, your asset class to trade, and why?
The Nasdaq, 100%. Nasdaq futures. It's my favorite because one, it was like the very first thing that when I got opened up into the world of futures, it was the first thing I knew to even trade, and so I've been watching it the longest. And I pretty much exclusively watch the Nasdaq paired with the ES or the S&P 500. Um, but I pretty much only predominantly trade the Nasdaq, and so I'm looking at the ES in terms of strength and market structure and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But the
Mm-hmm.
Nasdaq gives me a lot of. I'm a scalper, right? So I'm not looking for huge wins. I'm just looking for a nice little chunk of change, and to get in and out as fast as I can. And the Nasdaq like offers so much volatility, and opportunity in that standpoint of just like from 8:30 to 10:30 when I trade, the markets are just going crazy, and so the Nasdaq is it's so good for me. I love it.
Very true. There are so many opportunities in the Nasdaq. So, but speaking of the Nasdaq, and I think this is a great, you're a great person to ask about this, just because of how much volatility exists in the Nasdaq in so many different times of the day. Because I would go in and trade the Nasdaq sometimes at 7 o'clock at night, and it's
Yeah,
still moving.
yeah,
So
totally.
there are many opportunities there. So for me, my question for you is: would you say that you have an ideal market environment that you'd like to trade? And if so, how do you identify when that environment exists for you?
Yeah, so ideal environment for me is pretty much any day market open, so 8:30 Central. I thrive off of volatility. However, too much volatility is tough, right? So
Mm,
if the markets are flatlined, like I'm gonna have a hard time getting my scalps in. But if the markets are also like moving up and down 100 points every other minute, like
mm,
that's just like a bunch of risk on the table that I don't really want to deal with. So ideally for me, VIX above 20, but below like 60 or something, like I'm
sure.
kind of tracking volatility in that standpoint. I also look at like an ATR on like a NASDAQ daily chart just to kind of see like, are we at 200 points on average on a day or what?
Mm-hmm.
But from a time of day perspective, like you mentioned, like trading the overnight session, I don't really do it anymore. I've gotten burned too many times trading the overnights. And so I literally just, I like have very strict rules on pretty much just trading 8:30 Central to about 10 to 10:30 Central. Because after that, volatility starts dying down. I lose a lot of volume that I would normally use in my analysis, and the opportunities just aren't as good.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. So in your answer, you mentioned trading rules. I have a question about that specific trading rule. So for you, how do you calculate your lot or your position size when you're going into a trade?
It's pretty easy for me. I am a single lot trader, so
Mm,
when I'm entering a trade, I will only ever enter one contract on the Nasdaq. There are times where I will average into a trade if it is in my favor to do so, or if I believe it's in my favor to do so. So I'll throw on, get up to anywhere from like three, four max, trying to be max five lots, five contracts, whatever you want to call it. But pretty much, if I have it my way, I'm single lot trading, scalping, never more than
gotcha.
that. Yep.
Gotcha. Okay. So as a scalper, in your strategy, do you leave room to be able to trail when you're in a trade? And if so, um, what do you do, or how do you determine when to stay into a trade to be able to capture a bigger than normal move?
Yeah, so I don't trail. My brain just works to where like a fixed target is going to like leave me emotionally happier out of the trade, which is going to tee me up kind of in a better spot headspace wise for the next trade.
Mm-hmm.
I found that when I try and trail, seeing like my P&L or the points gained or whatever you want to call it, and then like being up here and then going back down to here for me to get stopped out of my trailing is just like not good for my headspace, even if I did end up making more money than I would have just having a fixed profit. So having a fixed profit is the way I do it. If for some reason I do go up more than normal, I use like I use volume basically at volume at different price levels to figure out kind of where my target should be. So if there's a ton of volume being conducted at 750 or something, just as an example, that would be my next
Hmm.
target if I'm going to open it up more than I normally would. So volume
Got it.
profile is like the way I kind of milk the market on that type of stuff. But
Got it. So no trailing, having a particular target that you're going for, but if things are moving and shaking, then looking at volume to see what will be your next target that you would ultimately
exactly.
go and go towards.
Yep. Exactly right.
Makes a lot of sense. Okay, so then with that, you were saying that you have these sorts of targets. Do you, as a trader, have, let's say, a daily, a weekly, or monthly kind of profit goal, or how do you determine when you've essentially made what you're looking to make?
So I don't have any like strict goals. Again, like I mentioned, like my headspace being super important to me. When I feel like I'm having to like stretch to meet something or like mandated to meet something is typically when I start underperforming. So if I can make like 4 or 5 grand in a month, like that covers my bills, personal bills, with some other stuff that I got going on the side, and I'm happy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ideally, I like to shoot for $1,000 a day on stream or whatever. Like when I'm trading, it's kind of an arbitrary number. For me, I try and follow. I kind of suck at this sometimes, but I try and follow 3 strikes or I'm out. So one, if I've lost 3 trades in a row, I'm just going to go and kill it for the day, no matter how much money I've made or lost. But two, at like 10 o'clock, 10:30, I mentioned this earlier, like following my time rules. If I'm at $400 at 10:30, I'm not going to grind it to 1,000. I'm just going to take my money and run because odds of me losing that $400 are much higher than me gaining $1,000 at that point. If I'm at $1,000 at 9:45 or 10 o'clock, I'm not going to push it in the next 15 minutes. I'll just sit out and be done for the day.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so those are the questions I have so far for you about your method. Now let's jump a little bit into kind of digging into your individual trading psychology.
Yep.
So for you as a trader, we kind of talked about a little bit where you're saying, your 3 strikes, you're out rule, hitting whatever targets you get, but knowing what it is that you're basically going for, but not trying to stretch it too far.
Yep.
But besides the money side of things, which obviously is a measuring stick for success, for you as an individual, how do you define success as a trader?
So for me, success for me is like not necessarily money related. At the end of the day,
Mm-hmm.
traders are going to win. They're going to lose, right? It's guaranteed. I try not to think about it too much because it's bound to happen. Um, Success for me is one, just like feeling like I'm improving day over day. I don't think that anybody's ever fully mastered trading. People will say they have or whatever. They're full of crap. So the markets are always changing. I should always be changing. Um, so I think defining success by realizing that I'm always trying to be better is good. Another way I define success is by drawdown. So if I'm able to get in and out of my trades in 18, 19, 20 seconds or whatever, that feels like a very successful day. If I'm in a trade for an hour and I had to take $1,000 of heat, that's not a very successful day, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of how I try and look at it. And that's how I personally gauge mentally if I'm successful or not.
Yeah.
It's kind of how I'm leaving the trading session feeling. Going into the next day, right? Because at the end of the day, my thought process is more important than the physical outcome because it's going to be so fluctuating at the end of the day.
Sure. Okay, so I got a follow-up question to that only because I follow your YouTube stream. And
Yep.
so for me, on that day that you went down, whatever it was, but you were a few bucks away from, blowing up a trading account and
Yep.
you put on the headphones and you grinded all the way back to the point of either break even or a little bit above profit. So for you, would you have considered that a successful day or no?
Not at all. Yeah. So like you're referring to a day where I was probably trading a Top Step account. So a prop
Mm-hmm.
firm called Top Step. Any day where I put myself in a position to where I have to grind, like I was saying, is like that's just plain and simple, not successful at all. I was pretty pissed off at the end of the day, even though like I was able to crawl out of it. If the fact that I'm having to crawl out of it and I put myself in that position to begin with is like not successful. So
Gotcha. No, that makes sense. I just wanted to get your perspective on it ultimately
yeah,
because I just
yeah,
remember you ended the stream and I can understand why. But yeah, so speaking of that, so a day where you took a rather larger than normal loss, and there are days where you've taken it and you just kind of stopped for the day. So
yeah.
my question for you on the psychology side is how do you handle a losing streak as a trader?
Yeah, so losing streaks for me, I mean, like I was saying, they're bound to happen, right? So I will have a month or two where I'm just feeling like literally at one with the market. Like I feel like I can't lose. That's got
Mm-hmm.
its own situations tied to it. But typically after those is followed by a week or two of like straight losing, at least for me. And at the end of the day, it just comes down to knowing that like one, I need to follow my strategy. I don't need to mix it up. A lot of people mix it up at this point when they've lost for 3, 4, 5, 6 days in a row or whatever, and
Yeah.
then they mix it up and then they start losing a whole lot more because they're trying something new, right? For me, I know like, hey, this is probably realistically markets are doing something funny. You either need to figure that out or it's really just a mental thing. You need to like suck it up and get back into it. And so I know that losing streaks are going to happen and they really happen every quarter or something for a nice little week or whatever. But just knowing who I am as a trader and knowing that like, hey, you're profitable, you don't got to worry about it. Like this happens to literally everyone. You're going to be okay. You're going to bounce back. Kind of like cliche self-talk in a way,
Mhm.
really helps out, to be honest.
No. Yes, I get it completely. With my kind of coaching aspect of this that I do with traders, there are a number of exercises that I help them to do as well. There are other traders who I talk to that tell their traders to go and do push-ups in times where they're losing and get their energy flowing, their blood flowing, and things like that. I think
Yeah,
also in your stream as well, every hour on the hour, you ask folks to do some push-ups,
I
ultimately get
try
some blood flowing as well.
to. Yeah,
Yeah, easier said than done, I know for sure. But there are a number of different things that you can do. So it's good to hear that you're able to do that. So then in those inevitable times, you kind of touched on this a little bit, but if you can expand on it, in those times where you are having those moments of self doubt, anxiety, battles with your own strategy or whatever the case is, what are some of the things that you do to help yourself kind of pull yourself out of that rut that you may be in?
so for me, I'm super, super, super big into like once I'm done trading for the day, like I'm done. So like at 10 o'clock or whatever, if I had a losing day, then I quickly like once I turn the stream off, I think like, okay, like let me review for like 2 or 3 minutes. Like what did I actually do here? What could I have done better? Give me some hindsight, all that stuff. And then I just stop thinking about it because I realized that over time, if I continue to think about it going into the afternoon, into the nighttime, I wake up thinking about a loss or whatever. And then I go into the next trading morning thinking about that loss and I'm pretty much guaranteed to lose, right? Because I've just been like enamored with, or I don't know if that's a word, but I've just been like so focused on losing of the past
Yeah.
24 hours. I'm pretty much like self fulfilling that. So I really, really, really try and practice like just clearing my head as soon as the trading day is done, whether that's a win or a loss. If I win and I'm thinking about a win all day long, I get really greedy the next day, really overconfident,
Mm.
and I end up losing. Same thing on the losing side. I get scared to get into a trade. I never take a trade. I take stupid trades, whatever. So I think really it just comes down to like learning how to clear your mind and learning how to actually walk away and turn off your screen is like crazy important.
Yeah, it's probably one of the most important things that you can do.
Yeah.
That and being able to divorce the emotions from an outcome of any individual trade, whether
Yeah.
it's a big one, a big winner, or a big loser.
Yeah.
Just being able to be okay with no matter what happens is one of the best things that you can do because it will ultimately help your trading. It's just sometimes it's a lot easier said than done, and most times
Yeah.
it's because
Way
people
easier than
put
said than
on,
done.
yeah,
Well, and a lot of people like really, a lot of people I think are typically over leveraged, underfunded, right? So
yes,
like most
yes,
people are kind of stretching what they feel like they can get out of an account. They see someone making X amount of money and they're like, oh, I can do this off my small account or whatever. And like, maybe they can, maybe you have a nice little winning streak or whatever, but a lot of
mm-hmm.
people kind of stretch themselves that way. And then it ends up backfiring pretty quickly once you start stressing about losers or about your account balance because of whatever. And then you kind of self fulfill that losing pattern.
Yep, yep. So speaking of over leveraged and underfunded, what is your process or what may be your advice for other traders to prevent revenge trading?
Revenge trading. I think for me, I like we were just talking about. It comes down to literally like walking away. I have something called the COD indicator, and this is like a joke, but it's also pretty real. Of like when I feel like I'm starting to like get too tied up into the markets or whatever, like I go play video games because I need to like literally do something that's going to take me away from the screens, stop me from YOLOing. Because at the end of the day, if I'm looking at a chart, I'm gonna see something that lines up with my entries, whether it's clouded or clear. That's not the goal, right?
Yeah.
If I lose $1,000 in a day, then like, okay, suck it up. That's fine. It is what it is. You can get it back tomorrow. You can do whatever you need to do. Like, stop thinking about it, go play some video games, go read a book, go do whatever you need to do, go on a run, like
Yeah.
take yourself away from the situation. Is the easiest way to stop overtrading and revenge trading, I think.
Absolutely. I have something similar. I say Pop One is calling. So I do play Call of Duty. So
Yeah.
COD, for those that aren't familiar with video games, is Call of Duty. It's a first-person shooter game. I play the VR version of
Oh,
it, which is
nice.
called Population One. So I got it on my Oculus Quest, and it's the
Nice.
same thing. I try not to do it too much in the afternoons. I'll usually
Yeah.
wait until the end of the day, but for the most part, yeah. When I hear that it's time for me to go and do something else, or I get a little bit too antsy and itchy, I know it's time for me to take a break and walk away. So I'm hearing a number of strategies that you use to help with your discipline, mainly being able to get up consistently and be away from the screens when it's time to walk away from the screens. But for you, what would you say is still the hardest mistake that you have to avoid while you're trading?
Hardest mistake for me is averaging in too early on trades, realistically. Basically, if you have seen my trading at all, literally all of my big losers come from averaging into stuff. All of my big winners come from averaging into stuff. So it is a like double-edged sword of if
Mm,
I'm trading perfectly, I'm scalping for set profits. I don't have that problem. They fill out very quickly. My biggest problem with trading is when something goes a little bit against me, but I see something come in that I'm like, oh, that's about to make it reverse real nicely or whatever. So I add another position in. Double-edged sword. There are times where that works very well. There are times where that
yeah.
works horribly. And that is for sure my biggest improving point personally moving forward, that I'm like every day I'm actively like going in saying I'm going to be patient, I'm going to be patient, I'm going to be patient, I'm going to be patient on my initial entry, and then if for some reason I have to do another entry, I'm going to be patient and wait for some form of confirmation if I really have a lot of belief in my trade or whatever you want to call it. Like patience, patience, patience. Trying to tell myself every morning.
Yeah. Uh, Patience is the highest paying thing you can do in trading.
Yeah,
You're
straight
mostly
up.
paid to be patient for the most
Yeah.
part. Yeah.
Yeah.
I try to tell people all the time, trading is not a casino. Although it's closest, you can look at it as gambling if you choose to. But if you just take the opposite perspective, which is you were just paid to be patient, you're paid to wait for the best opportunities that come up and then seize those rather than just waiting for action that kind of fit your rules, 80% fit your rules, but don't exactly fit your rules. But I'm going to get it anyway because I'm looking for action is the easiest way to lose your money.
Oh
More
yeah.
money than you tried to lose in the beginning. So
Yeah.
I get it. So great. Those are my kind of trading psychology questions. We just got a few more questions for you. If you're cool with it, we'll just go ahead and power through. Okay.
Yeah.
So for you, Matt, what would you say is the best trade you've ever made?
I don't know if I've had one on futures that like really stands out. I try and be like fairly calm. I've had like a couple of like I had one Globex session where I was able to make like 6K at the beginning of this year, and that was well above what it has ever happened previously. Best trade of my life though has got to be during all of the meme hype with AMC trading stocks, because I
Mm-hmm.
trade stocks on the side too. Had like a nice little like 16 bagger off of
Nice.
AMC, and that was like, hey, that was fun. That was a nice little morning. Go celebrate after that one, you know. But yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. So then on the flip side, what would you say is the worst trade you've ever made?
So worst trades, I have two that really stand out. First
Mm-hmm.
one, first time I ever self-funded a futures account. I lost 20K, 25 in a day or something. Because
In a
I just
day,
kept,
Matt?
huh?
In a day, you lost that much
Yeah, yeah,
money?
it was bad, dude. It was really, really bad. It happens, right? We all have different
Yeah.
journeys to becoming decent traders. But basically, it was just like averaging in, and it got to the point where I was like just straight psychologically, totally
Mm-hmm.
up, you know, of like, this is not good. I'm just gonna throw another lot on, another lot. I think I got
Mm-hmm.
like 12 lots deep or whatever, and then I just was like, holy, this is not gonna go in my favor. That was not fun. Similarly, first of the year on stream, well, this one was harder because it was in front of 800 people or whatever. Similar situation, which we ended up crawling back a little bit to like minus 6K. And then that literally that same night is when I had the Globex plus 6Ks, which was like, it just was
Mm-hmm.
like a roller coaster of emotions. And it really helped me pump the brakes going into the new year of like, holy, I need to reset. Like, this is the time to reset. I need to reset. I got that crap out of my way. Like, now it's time to like focus up.
Got it.
be a good trader.
Got it. Makes perfect sense. And it's nothing like a big losing day to kind of help you to get perspective. I was hoping that you would have said that it was in a combine account or something like that, and not actual
Nope.
20K of your own life savings
I wish, dude.
that you
I wish.
lost.
But
Yeah, but I've definitely done it before.
yeah.
Like it can't keep going against me forever. It's got to
Yeah,
turn
right.
around at some point, right? And it never does.
And
And then you just end up.
I will say, like, even though it sucks, it has defined my psychology as a trader because I was able to recover from both of these instances. And so, like, a lot of people are like, how do you keep in your cool while you're in drawdown? It's because I've been there before. Like, I've literally been there
Mhm.
before and I've bounced back from it. So I know what it's like to be at the bottom. And I know what it's like to climb up to the very bottom of your feelings, to climb all the way back up. And that has shaped me as a trader to be finding that zen that I was talking about of like, you know what,
Yep.
I've been in this position before. I've done this a million times at this point. Like, let's just grind. Let's follow my rules. Let's follow the strategy because I know exactly what the outcome will be if I can keep level headed. Once I get on tilt is when things are bad. So like, you've been here, do it again. That type of thing.
Yes. Yes. No. I get it and absolutely agree.
Yeah.
So you said you've been trading for a better part of like 4 years or so, right? Kind of doing this full
Like
time.
aggressively trading for like 4 years.
Yeah.
Like passively trading for much longer than that, but I wasn't taking it super serious, right?
Gotcha. Okay. So in that moment when you started trading, if we had a time machine for you to be able to go back and talk to that Matt who is just getting started, what would be the number one piece of advice you would give him, given all that you know now?
Find internet friends who are traders also faster. Um, that piece of advice like exponentially improved my trading game very quickly through people who are like-minded that I might not have known in real life, but I'm able to find through the internet. That's advice number one is find a community. Um, Ideally one that your ideology is the same on, right? And then
Sure.
two, uh, don't worry about the next shiny thing strategy wise. There's always going to be one. Stop trying to pursue it. Just like find something and run with it, whether it's support and resistance, a moving average or whatever, or you hate both of those things. Find something that you can pursue and become an expert at it.
Got it. So jumping back into that time machine now, and instead of going in the past, let's take a trip into the future. So let's say a year from now, we've come back together, we're doing this podcast again. So for you, Matt, what would you say would have to happen over this next year in your trading for you to be happy with the results?
Um, I think for me, it would be like I was able to eliminate or be patient enough, probably is a probably better way to put it. Be patient enough to eliminate a lot of those large drawdown trades, right? Like I don't use stops. I like to let my trades breathe. I will probably always do that. I like the way it works. But with that comes risk, right? And just being patient enough to find my ideal setups to where I don't have to even worry about that side of it. It would be the best thing for me. But I don't know. It's a tough question.
Okay, well, thankfully, if it's a tough one, that was the last major question that we have for you. I appreciate you taking the time to go through this 20 questions interview for us. There was a lot of insightful things in here. So the last question I just have for you, Matt, is tell us what you got going on. In what ways can we go out and support you?
Yeah. YouTube is the number one thing. I live stream for free my trading every single morning, 8:20 Central, Monday through Friday at Trades by Matt on YouTube and on Instagram and on Twitter. You can go follow me all over the place. But um, that is the number one spot to come hang out, ask questions, have discussion, talk trading, all of the good stuff. It's 100% free. There's no paywall anywhere on any of my stuff. So it's really just like I get a lot out of the community talking to me about my trading and having the accountability. And I hope to give that back um, to people that are watching. So at Trades by Matt on YouTube, come hang out on the stream.
Excellent. Well, we'll make sure to put a link to your YouTube channel for the live stream in the show notes. Matt, again, I want to thank you so much for agreeing to come onto the podcast and being interviewed with these 20 questions. This has been another episode of the Market Replay Live podcast, and we will see you soon. Thanks, Matt.
Hey, thanks.